Hey guys! Hi, I hope everyone's doing well. I have a new series for you. The series is called Julian's World. This book in particular is the stories Julian tells. But I hope that many of you are reading books in a series since that was the focus of our unit that we were getting into just before we left school. And I want to remind you that when you're reading a book, you should have your composition book out, taking notes on the characters, writing down descriptions. How are they described? How are they feeling? Are they changing their feelings throughout the book? How do they react to different things? So those are different things that we should be jotting down in our notebook. Also, we should be writing if there's a problem, how's it solved? Do you learn something? Did the characters learn something? These are all things that we should be focusing on as we're reading our books. As we get into the series, whichever series you're in, you want to see how things are the same from book to book or how things are different. Are there new characters in each book? Are they the same characters? Those are all things you want to keep in mind and be able to talk about when your parents ask you what you're reading. So I'm going to start with Julian's World. Just going to read the first chapter, but before I begin, you know what we have to do. Read the blurb. So here it goes. Julian is a quick fibber and a wishful thinker, and he is great at telling stories. He can make people, especially his younger brother Huey, believe just about anything. Like the story about the cats that come in the mail, or the fig leaves that make you grow tall if you eat them off a tree. But some stories can lead to a heap of trouble, and that's exactly where Julian and Huey end up. So just on the blurb, hopefully you took a little bit of notes. We learned that Julian's a fibber. Think about what a fibber is. Okay, he tells little lies. He's a wishful thinker. What do you think that means? And he's great at telling stories. He's the older brother. He has a little brother named Huey. And it seems like they're going to get into trouble. Okay? Let's read and find out a little bit. The first chapter is called The Pudding Like a Night on the Sea. Let me show you that. The pudding like a night on the sea. I wonder what that means. I'm going to make something special for your mother, my father said. My mother was out shopping. My father was in the kitchen, looking at the pots and pans and the jars of this and that. What are you going to make? I said. A pudding, he said. My father is a big man with wild black hair. When he laughs, the sun laughs in the window panes. When he thinks, you can almost see his thoughts sitting on all the tables and chairs. When he is angry, me and my little brother, Huey, shiver to the bottom of our shoes. Those are really good descriptions. What kind of pudding will you make? Huey said. A wonderful pudding, my father said. It will taste like a whole raft of lemons. It will taste like a night on the sea. A wonderful pudding. Then he took down a knife and sliced 5 lemons in half. He squeezed the first one. Juice squirted in my eye. Stand back, he said, and squeezed again. The seeds flew out on the floor. Pick up those seeds, Huey, he said. Huey took the broom and swept them up. My father cracked some eggs and put the yolks in a pan and the whites in a bowl. He rolled his sleeves and pushed back his hair and beat up the yolks. "Sugar, Julian," he said, and I poured in the sugar. He went on beating. Then he put in lemon juice and cream and set the pan on the stove. The pudding bubbled, and he stirred it fast. Cream splashed on the stove. "Wipe that up, Huey," he said. Huey did. It was hot by the stove. My father loosened his collar and pushed out his sleeves. The stuff in the pan was getting thicker and thicker. He held the beater up high in the air. "Just right," he said, and sniffed in the smell of the pudding. He whipped the egg whites and mixed them into the pudding. The pudding looked softer and lighter than air. "Done," he said. He washed all the pots, splashed water on the floor, and wiped the counter so fast his hair made circles around his head. "Perfect," he said. "Now I'm going to take a nap. If something important happens, bother me. If nothing important happens, don't bother me. And the pudding is for your mother. Leave the pudding alone." He went to the living room and was asleep in a minute, sitting straight up in his chair. Huey and I guarded the pudding. "Oh, it's a wonderful pudding," Huey said. "With waves on the top like the ocean," I said. "I wonder how it tastes," Huey said. "Leave the pudding alone," I said. I'm going to pause right here. I want you to make a prediction of what you think is going to happen. Okay, hope you wrote down some predictions, learning some things about the characters. So Huey continues and says, "If I just put my finger in there, I'll know how it tastes." And he did it. "You did it," I said. "How does it taste?" "It tastes like a raft of lemons," he said. "It tastes like a night on the sea." "You've made a hole in the pudding," I said. "But since you liked it, I'll have a taste." And it tasted like a whole night of lemons. It tasted like floating at sea. "It's such a big pudding," Huey said. "It can't hurt to have a little more." "Since you took more, I'll have more," I said. "That was a bigger lick than I took," Huey said. "I'm going to have more again." "Whoops," I said. "You put a whole lot in your hand," Huey said. "Look at the pudding you spilled on the floor." "I'm going to clean it up," I said, and I took the rag from the sink. "That's not really clean," Huey said. "It's the best I can do," I said. "Look at the pudding," Huey said. It looked like craters on the moon. "We have to smooth this over," I said, "so it looks the way it did before. Let's get spoons." And we evened the tops of the pudding with spoons. And while we evened it, we ate some more. "There isn't much left," I said. "We were supposed to leave the pudding alone," Huey said. "We'd better get away from here," I said. We ran into our bedroom and crawled under the bed. After a long time, we heard my father's voice. "Come into the kitchen, dear," he said. "I have something for you." "What? What is it?" my mother said, out in the kitchen. Under the bed, Huey and I pressed ourselves to the wall. Look, said my father, out in the kitchen, a wonderful pudding. Where is the pudding? My mother said. Where are you, boys? See how big the letters got? What do you think that means? Where are you, boys? My father said. His voice went through every crack and corner of the house. We felt like two leaves in a storm. Where are you? I said. My father's voice was booming. Huey whispered to me, I'm scared. We heard my father walking slowly through the rooms. Huey, he called. Julian? We could see his feet. He was coming into our room. He lifted the bedspread. There was his face and his eyes like black lightning. He grabbed us by the legs and pulled. Stand up, he said. We stood. Here's a picture. Under that bed. They definitely look scared. I think Kevin the dog's scared. What do you have to tell me? He said. We went outside, Huey said, and when we came back, the pudding was gone. Then why were you hiding under the bed? My father said. We didn't say anything. We looked at the floor. I can tell you one thing, he said. There is going to be some beating here now. There's going to be some whipping. The curtains at the window were shaking. Huey was holding my hands. Go into the kitchen, my father said, right now. We went into the kitchen. Whoa, lots of feelings are happening right now. So just think about how the characters are changing. How's Dad feeling? How are the boys feeling? Come here, Huey, my father said. Huey walked toward him, his hands behind his back. See these eggs? My father said. He cracked them and put the yolks in a pan and set the pan on the counter. He stood a chair by the counter. Stand up here, he said to Huey. Huey stood on the chair by the counter. Now it's time for your beating, my father said. Huey started to cry. His tears fell in with the egg yolks. Take this, my father said. My father handed him the egg beater. Now beat those eggs, he said. I want this to be a good beating. Oh, Huey said. He stopped crying, and he beat the egg yolks. Now you, Julian, stand here, my father said. I stood in a chair by the table. I hope you're ready for your whipping. I didn't answer. I was afraid to say yes or no. Here, he said, and he set the egg whites in front of me. I want these whipped and whipped well. Yes, sir, I said, and started whipping. My father watched us. My mother came into the kitchen and watched us. After a while, Huey said, This is hard work. That's too bad, my father said. Your beating's not done. And he added sugar and cream and lemon juice to Huey's pan and put the pan on the stove. And Huey went on beating. My arm hurts from whipping, I said. That's too bad, my father said. Your whipping's not done. So I whipped, and Huey beat and beat. Hold that beater in the air, Huey, my father said. Huey held it in the air. See, my father said, a good pudding stays on the beater. It's thick enough now. Your beating's done. Then he turned to me. Let's see those egg whites, Julian, he said. They were puffed up and fluffy. Congratulations, Julian, he said. Your whipping's done. He mixed the egg whites into the pudding himself. Then he passed the pudding to my mother. A wonderful pudding, she said. Would you like some, boys? No, thank you, we said. She picked up a spoon. Why, this tastes like a whole raft of lemons, she said. This tastes like a night on the sea. That's the end of chapter 1. The next chapter is called Catalog Cats. Think about what that chapter is going to be about. When I turn off the video, I'm going to have some questions for you about the first chapter. Try to answer those in your notebook. I hope you enjoyed the first chapter. See ya.